Yeah, because as two nerd dads, we don't. We just go live. We just
Yeah,
go.
and we're gonna talk depressing stuff like being alone in Mars,
Yeah, maybe.
pondering your humanity.
But before we go ahead and bring our guest on, Ignacio, we'll get into what our history is with this fine piece of Americana, no, comic history.
Yeah,
I, for one, have read Watchmen before. I've read it two or three times. I think this might even be the third or fourth. But I've enjoyed it. I am indifferent about it, though. I don't say it's the greatest. I've enjoyed other series more. There are parts that I do enjoy that I think are superior issues overall. I have seen and enjoyed the movie. In fact, reading this again has kind of made me want to watch it again.
yeah.
And oddly enough, I think 11 or 12 years ago was when the movie first dropped.
I don't remember, but might be.
But what's your take on the series?
Well, I was exposed to Watchmen when I was 12. That's the first time I read it. Of course, I didn't get most of it because I was 12. And I went to a course of sequential storytelling, and the dude that was teaching the course had Watchmen, Akira, and all that amazing stuff that branded me for life. Uh, and I read it at 12, and then I read like three times more, including this one. And I have to say, each time I read it, I find new stuff. And but speaking of uh, Alan Moore, I don't think it's my favorite Alan Moore book, but I really love what this did to superhero comics. And each time I read it, I like it even more, if that's possible.
And have you seen the movie?
I have seen the movie, I think, twice, and I think it's a decent adaptation of an adaptable uh, comic book. I think the series, the sequel series, the HBO series, it's even better, and it's a worthy sequel to this comic we're about to review.
Right. So 14 years ago, tomorrow is when the movie came out, March 6th, 2009. I don't think the next guy we're about to bring on was even born then. But let's bring on to the stream Mr. Cole's comic
Wait,
claims.
when was I born?
No, I'm just
I was very confused.
you actually have an interesting tie-in to this book.
Yeah, I was born the
Want
day
to share?
this book starts.
So
And what's your connection besides that to this book?
So I own two copies of the Blu-ray. I have both the extended and the normal version. I have never seen this movie. I own two copies of the trade, one in which I bought in Switzerland, and the other one I bought off Facebook Marketplace, and it's sitting right there. I have read this is my second time reading it. And the first time I read it, so I said something, and I think a lot of people took it as a hot take because I said that I hated this book. And I think the general understanding is that I don't hate this book. This is a good book. I think that there's just a lot of people that are like, I have this coworker, and he was like, "I'm trying to read the top 100 books of all time," and Watchmen makes that list. It's the only comic book that makes any sort of like acclaimed list, and it's like I get why it does because it did something great, but also I don't know that it's as good as some other stories that are out there in comics. I don't think I could give this to my brother and my brother would enjoy it. But like The Walking Dead I can give to him and he would very much enjoy that. So like I think this is kind of that book that everyone is like, you should read this because this is the perfect adaptation of comics. And that's where probably I hate it. Like I know that we've even said there's a lot of backlog in this and back matter. And I
Yeah.
feel like most people skip it. And if a book is that great, would people skip parts of the book?
No.
I've like, Scott Snyder did a book called After Death that has a ton of prose in it. And I've never wanted to skip the prose in that, but I have when I read this. And I don't even think that Scott Snyder is like one of the best writers out there either, right? So I mean, I don't know. That's my hot take.
Okay, so Cole hates it. Let's go on to our next guest. Actual Dracula.
Adrian Byte.
Hey guys, how's it
Hello.
going?
Good, good. What do you feel about this 12-issue miniseries that's hailed as some of the greatest of all time?
Yeah, so Watchmen is one of my favorite comics ever. It's kind of, if someone asks me what my favorite comic is, it's kind of my go-to answer because it's simple, The Watchmen. But there are, like I think, like Ignacio and Cole was saying, there's other stuff out there that I would put, at least on par with it, like The Sandman. But that's 70 issues compared to 12. In terms of like a single volume story like this, it is probably my favorite. I've read it, I don't know, I'd say at least 5 or 6 times. I first read it. This is one of the first graphic novels or trade paperbacks I ever owned. Someone gave it to me when I was I'd say 13 or 14 years old. And so I've read it many times since. And yeah, I mean, it's a masterpiece, of the medium, in my opinion. And I did enjoy the movie. I thought it was a really good, faithful adaptation to the core of the story. But of course, you're missing out on a lot of the extra material that makes up this comic. So, and the HBO series was fantastic. Like I did not have much faith in a sequel to this, so I was blown away by how good the series was.
Cool, thank you. So, in summation, Drac hates Cole, and we'll move on to our next person,
I have seen the
Correct.
HBO series though.
which is weird. DJ Linx,
What up?
what is your view on this 12-issue masterpiece?
So, leading up to this show, first of all, thanks for the invitation. It was the first time I ever read it. What? Oh shit! I didn't. It was the first time I ever read it. Wow. The movie, the unrated version of the movie, is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I absolutely love the movie. So going into this, I was just like, whatever. I wasn't really real keen to read it, but I read it, and I absolutely love this thing. Movie aside, this thing is everything that I like about superheroes and storytelling. I think the dark nature of it is something that I gravitate towards. I've always said, I'm more of a high concept story characters. Like, it doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be like super heroics like a normal traditional comic book is. And I could imagine how this made waves when it was released in 86, right? Where it's just like everything now with The Boys and Dark Knight and all the shit, it's all dark, but this was like the first real dark take on a comic book, and I absolutely love it. I agree with Drac. It's a masterpiece.
So what's odd to me is the movie came out 14 years ago.
Yes.
And you said
That's
you
crazy.
loved it, but it didn't spur you to read it fast.
So when the movie dropped, I wasn't into comic books, right? And then what happens is, I'll be completely honest, I'm not a person that goes back and picks up things from, the Bronze Age or Silver Age stuff. I don't collected volumes of things from that era. I'm more so, I like indie and like more modern horror things. That's what I'll read. It's rare that I'll go back and read something like from the 80s. So it didn't, spur me to want to read this, because it's just like, that shit is in 86. That shit is whack. And I was wrong. I was 100% wrong.
Okay. So, Mr. Ignacio, do you want to start the panel out? Do you have a specific first question that you want to get to?
Well, I want to maybe ask the panel if you think, because I have an opinion that has grown with time, but I think that from panel 1 of page 1 of the first issue, we are presented with a narrator that is an insane person, a crazy person. And basically he's going to take us on a 12-issue journey with his diary.
Oh, no.
But this dude is absolutely a zealot, and it's insane. And even from panel one, well, not panel one. I think it's panel
Can I
4.
read that? Can I read that?
Yeah, of course.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You want to read it in the voice, though.
I want to read it in the voice.
Happy
Rorschach's
birthday.
Journal, October 12th. No, you can move on. You can move on.
Don't carcass. Okay. Happy birthday, Cole. First of all.
Thank you.
I am never going to forget Cole's birthday.
No.
Thank you, guys.
So I'm going to focus mainly on the visual storytelling. But from the first page, we have foreshadowing that is going to basically come together as we read more. But in this panel, we start seeing the pyramid motif in this panel too. And it's directly connected with the smiley face. And we know after this that this dude that it's walking by the blood and leaving a trail is the dude we are following to the story. We find that later. But the pyramid motif is linked to Adrian Bide that, spoilers, guys, if you haven't read this book from 1986, he's the villain of the story. So basically, Alan Moore, I would like to read his script about this. Basically, Alan Moore in the first page is telling us the whole thing. He's telling us that the comedian is dead, that Rorschach is a crazy dude, that we're going to follow his bloody trail towards the conclusion of his comic, and that the guy with the pyramid scheme, basically, the pyramid motif, is the dude that killed him.
Okay, so hold on. Before you go further, you're saying because that pool of blood is in a pyramid shape, that's telling us...
No. That purple truck...
The truck, yeah.
It has a pyramid on it.
That pool of blood is the weirdest shaped pyramid I've ever seen.
But still pyramid.
No, but it could be a pyramid. It's a triangle, is it not?
If you go back in the first panel that we see the truck, it's parallel to the pool of blood and a smiley face. There you go.
There you go. Wow.
So basically,
The whole page is also starting at the bottom and working its way up towards the roof.
this whole scene and this whole issue is basically a zoom out and a zoom in and a zoom out. But do we agree that the Rorschach is a crazy dude?
Well, you said he was insane. I don't know that I would use that word. He's certainly a zealot, and he's a hypocrite. But he's definitely I did want to get into that later. If I could sum up Rorschach in 2 words, it would be incel Batman.
No wonder I like him so much.
Shit.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good description of what this guy's train of thought. But and starting this book off, like the way this starts off, that first panel, I think first of all, using Rorschach's voice to begin the story makes the most sense, especially with the first thing, how Alan Moore sets the tone for this whole story with the smiley face button in the gutter full of blood. And that first line, dog carcass in alley this morning, tire tread on burst stomach. The city's afraid of me. I've seen its true face. That so you were focusing on the pyramid thing. That I would just go right with that first panel even. And that's kind of the base of the pyramid, I suppose, that this is the kind of the way Rorschach sees the world as just this terribly corrupt, awful place that somebody needs to clean up.
Mhm.
All right, so that's going to lead me. I guess going issue by issue is going to be a little bit tougher, but because we know the whole thing,
Mhm.
but everything ties into something. I wonder what the difference is, if any, between the comedian and Rorschach and how they view the world.
Well,
I
I
think
don't know.
even in issue 6, he says something about how he aligns with the comedian,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, he
he's the
does.
only person that he
He's
thinks is similar to him, or something like
he's
that.
definitely the most similar to him. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the comedian. I think he's already defeated by this point
Hmm.
because we find out later that the comedian knows about Ozymandias' plan and couldn't find it in himself to do something about it.
Mhm.
He's so overwhelmed, this is a monster. I mean, these Rorschach and the comedian are two different kind of monsters, but they're both monsters. And the fact that this particular monster, the comedian, cannot find it in himself to try to solve or even explore what Adrian Byte has. Talks about how down he is, how out of it,
Okay.
basically.
Yeah, your audio, the last couple of sentences, Iggy, have been in and out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
For a second, I thought that was just me because my wife started playing music and it played on Spotify on my computer for a second. I was like, what's going on?
I started listening to music suddenly, but
Yeah, now you sound better now.
okay, okay,
Can I just chime in on the whole thing if Rorschach was
please.
insane? You have to define what insanity is. So in this world, anybody that's willing to put on a mask and fight crime is insane, in my opinion. So Rorschach is just par for the course for this. So I wouldn't define him in this world as insane. Everybody's insane. It's a fucked up place. Dog carcass and alley.
Yeah, yeah, I see the point.
Can I just ask another random question? Do you
Yeah.
have anything on the back of your final page, DJ? Do you have anything written there? Because if not, I might have got a gold mine here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Dear Dave.
Yep. I was like, holy shit, do I have a signed copy from Neil Gaiman randomly?
Yeah.
On a book that you hate.
Well, yeah, or like, why is Neil Gaiman randomly signing Watchmen?
I was about to change my name to Dave.
All right, so
One
we
thing that it amazes me is the amount of detail that Dave Gibbons puts in this comic, in this whole comic. That's the first thing that draw me to this book is the amount of artistic skill that's in every panel. And then I started thinking, what's the script that the Alan Moore script looks like? Because I've read Alan Moore scripts and they are insane. And I think this might have been his one of his most insane ones because of all the yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his work definitely gets overshadowed by the fact that everyone talks about Alan Moore's writing, but yeah, David Gibbons' work in this is incredible. And yeah, I know Alan Moore is a very detailed and very particular about what he puts into his script.
Mhm.
I've never actually seen the script for this, so I don't know how.
I don't think even I think not even Dave Gibbons has a copy of this original script.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I have searched for it and I haven't seen it around. Can you go back a little bit, Nick? Because we see here the cops that are investigating the death of the comedian Edward Blake. At this point, we don't know he's the comedian, and when they start to speculate, hey Remy, when they start to speculate about what happened and this and that, somebody busted through the door, and then we get in the next panel the the actual thing that happened. And here's a detail that these motherfuckers probably did on purpose. These, you don't see me pointing, but the shape and the design of the shoe, it's repeated on multiple characters throughout the comic. So you cannot identify the little things you see about this perpetrator, the person that kills a comedian, that eventually we know it's Adrian Byte. But in this murder mystery of a superhero sci-fi book, he gives us hints, but he hides them very well, and he uses misdirect and show these shoes, and this shoe is basically the most ubiquitous pair of shoes in the comic.
Ubiquitous.
I've never even looked at the other shoes. But now I'm like,
So you're saying that everyone is wearing the exact same shoes?
oh yeah, Rorschach
Yeah.
has them on like
Yeah.
page
Yeah.
32.
Yeah, a lot of people is wearing those shoes, which is
Yeah.
crazy because there are multiple crazy designs. The cops have like headsets, and the people in restaurants are smoking kind of crazy cigars with like spheres in the tip. But then again, the shoes are kind of the same each
Mhm.
time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Rorschach shoes there. It's pretty much the same design.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's most of the world this takes place in is very much how it would be in 1986, but there's like a few quasi futuristic elements just thrown in there.
Yeah.
Like the cigarettes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess we can attribute that to a character we haven't met just yet, and the advancements that his presence probably brought about. So, anybody ever wonder what do any of the comics in the future get into why he was wearing the smiley face button at all?
I think they mentioned it in Doomsday Clock, in one of the issues in Doomsday Clock, but I'm not 100% certain.
All right, somebody's laundry is done.
Yeah, that's mine.
Nice.
Why would he be wearing that? That's a good point.
And why would he wear it on pajamas? I mean, I can see it on a suit or a jacket. Why on pajamas?
Is that a robe?
Yeah,
It's a
it's he's in a bathrobe. Yeah.
So maybe he just keeps it on his bathrobe to never forget where he came from.
Maybe he's just a stone cold pimp.
Yeah, and it's funny because when you think of Watchmen, that's the icon you think of,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you never go into the backstory of why or what that's all about.
I'm kind of for certain they talk about it in Doomsday Clock. Or am I wrong? Or did I just see a video? My bad. Forget I said anything. Strike that from the record.
Stay
It's
tuned
strong.
for the read and review for Doomsday Clock, where I know who the first guy I'm inviting to that.
Yes.
Okay, so we see here the beating being put on the comedian,
Yeah.
and all the possibilities of why he or how he got out the window.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we see the reality of things, and someone picked that dude up, and he's a bulky dude, and toss him out the window, breaking the glass in the process.
Yeah. In a high rise, fancy buildings where the glass would be really thick.
Yeah. Yeah, and Alan Moore is a master of exposition because he has the cops argue about that.
Mhm.
So you don't have you have no opportunity to complain about it because he already talked about it. So shut up and keep reading, fanboy.
Shane, what the funny thing is everybody's been told, all the superheroes have been told that they can't do superheroing anymore, but they never really knew who said superheroes were because the cops never let on that this was a comedian. So you get the insight that they weren't the boys type of characters, where everybody knows who all the heroes are, and
Yeah.
And this is the culmination of that sequence. And I don't know if you paid attention, guys, but the comedian never fights back or defends himself. Never. He never puts his guard up, and we will see with the comic, with the issues, he's a soldier, he's a savage. But in this occasion, he's broken. He's defeated from the get-go.
He's ready for it.
Yeah, it was almost like he was just they were gonna knock on his door, and he was just waiting for it, like just waiting for his time to be up.
And here we see in the next panel, we see little hints of what's coming up. The Black Raider and Vietnam 51st state.
Oh wow!
All the stuff that happens in the next issue with Vietnam.
Yeah. And here we go down with the cops going down in the elevator. The Gunga Diner, it's a kind of a important because that's where Rorschach, we see him in this panel to the right. He's basically hanging out there, and if you know him, he's kind of obviously hanging out there. And that's one of his problems, part of his demise, because after a point in the story, someone plants a note for him there and basically sets a trap.
Yeah. So, and they talk about the Keene Act passed in 1977 and which superpowered individuals are still active.
And there's no superpowers. There's no superpowers. The only superpower being is Manhattan. The other people is like DJ said, they're crazy.
Yeah,
crazy people. And they are talking about
Mothman.
We'll meet them soon enough. But anybody ever wondered too why they chose the color palette they did? A lot of browns. And, like when you think 80s, you think pastel colors, bright, vibrant. These are just a little weird to me. You know, it's either oranges or browns.
They did it on purpose because they're basically using all the colors that are basically secondary colors, not primary colors, which you're used to see in superhero comics, the bright blues and reds and greens. They went with the secondary palette to basically tell you visually that this is a different kind of story.
Yeah, this ain't your mama's superhero comic.
Exactly. So. And these cops are talking about Rorschach never retiring. And next panel, of course, we have seen him in every panel since the beginning, since even before we saw the cops. There he is, Walter Kovacs. Always there.
Yep, and notice too the time to watch. So definitely has been a series of those who love Easter eggs and those who try to find out. There we again we see the pyramid again on a vehicle.
Yes,
with
I haven't seen that one.
With the smoke kind of dragging you around that way.
Yeah. And this is insane.
Incel Batman in the flesh, baby.
How dare you?
Yep, and a little foreshadowing here about a character we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. And then
can you go back to that really quickly? I'm sorry.
Go.
Yeah, no, so it's funny how they're talking about Dr. Manhattan, and if you look at the shape of the bottom of the mushroom cloud, it's his dick and balls.
That's the type of insight that I've been looking forward to.
Yeah.
That's just because it's a fresh pair of eyes.
You're absolutely right, man.
Yeah, look at the mushroom. Come on, man.
It is.
Would you call that a doomsday cock?
There you go. And there's the expertise version of there.
Remy Q had a very insightful comment about the coloring. I think it may also showcase the fact it's not our world in the 80s, something that would have probably worked well if he was on the panel.
Send him the link. Hey, join us.
Yeah, no, he's got the link.
Okay.
But hey. Also, in the movie, didn't the air balloon, wasn't there an air balloon in the movie too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like an advertisement for the Gunga Diner.
So there we go. And we are about to introduce to our boy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually see it's the 80s, and police procedure is not what it is today, because that's a piece of evidence they
just
left there. They just left
Yeah.
Or maybe they thought, who would wear this in his bathrobe? No, nobody.
See, there you go.
Human being juice.
And here we see how detail oriented these motherfuckers are, because the grappling gun has a CO2 tank, and they are really focused on showing you that.
Yeah.
There's no need for that, but they want to ground this in reality.
Okay, so I'm gonna hold that thought for a moment. Okay, so we see this, we see our boy here grappling up. And literally, human beings, it'll take him hours to scale this building.
Yeah, for sure.
And no one saw him. But look at the shoes.
And he's got damn good aim with that grappling hook.
Yeah. I mean,
Fantastic. At midnight, all the agents.
all right, but if we see CO2 and how he's getting, how do the shapes in the mask move?
The shapes in the mask?
Yes.
Oh, he explained that. So he worked at a tailor shop, and it was a dress that some rich lady commissioned, where it was just like a layer of fabric, water with the color, and then another layer of fabric on top of it. So she didn't like it when she got it, so she wanted to throw it out, and he just kept it. And then he made the mask out of that dress that was abandoned.
There you go.
Yeah, and it reacts to the body temperature.
Yeah, so I like the mystique of it just moving. I thought when they did explain it, now I don't remember if they explained that in the actual story, or was it one of those the 5 pages at the end. I don't remember, but I was kind of like disappointed in that. I thought that the mystery of the mask, I would have liked that to remain mysterious.
Yeah, but this is one of the problems. Sorry, go Drake.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if this was written 10 years ago, do you think his mask would have been made out of that black and blue dress that some people see as white and gold?
Wow.
Was that 10 years ago already?
Probably.
He would have been wearing that and an Ed Hardy trucker hat instead of a fedora.
Right, a Von Dutch t-shirt.
Yeah, there you go.
That's one of the things Alan Moore regrets about doing Watchmen, is that he deconstructed the genre so much and explained so much that it became the norm. And it basically killed the mystique, like you said, DJ. It killed the mystique of the fantasy of the superhero genre. Because now we need to know why Superman has his powers when we didn't need to before. And now we find out that Edward Blake is a comedian. And the suit, dude, the gimp mask.
Yeah.
I call it my Friday mask.
Yep. And then this is our first introduction to the Minutemen.
The Minutemen, yep.
You can almost predict that he's gonna get naked and gonna fuck them.
Yeah. So what I don't understand is the suit, everything was nicely placed on the wall. He just took it and put it exactly like it was on the
You gotta put it on the floor to figure out what's going on. Yeah.
So that's, to me, that's more of
So
a...
his body would go inside of there. Okay.
Yeah. I wonder what this is for. Do boots go on head?
This is how tall he was.
Yeah.
And
This
then from
must
there,
belong to a man.
we directly transition to our first.
Flashback. No.
It might be going on at the same time, I think. Yes, because we'll see it in a couple of panels.
Oh yeah, it's Hollis Mason talking to Dan.
Yeah.
Dan
Dryberg.
Dryberg.
And
Yeah.
Dryberg. Yep.
Human
Basically,
bee juice.
A character of the Minutemen, and his legacy, right? Is that the name of the? And in the back matter, the thing that people skip basically is Hollis Mason's book, the first Night Owl book. It's what you read in the back matter. I don't know if in every issue, but in the first issues, it's
It's the first three, I think.
The first three, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess you can say it's a flashback because earlier we saw the cops talking on the street, and the time on Rorschach's watch was 5 minutes after 12, and that was before he scaled the building and whatnot. So,
yeah.
I mean, if this is technically accurate, this is a couple of minutes before that happened.
So would that technically be a flashback, or they're just not telling the story chronologically? Oh, what the hell?
Well,
you got his stuff first, though, so he probably had that few minutes. This is just saying it started maybe before that.
A little earlier, yeah. All right, and
and it also has the motif that it's 5 minutes to midnight most of the time in the Doomsday Clock. For people who don't know, because I didn't know what the Doomsday Clock was when I was a kid. The Doomsday Clock is a theoretical clock that approaches midnight as closer we are to nuclear war, right?
Right.
Nick, you're correct.
Situation will either advance the clock or take time.
Nick,
But
private chat.
let's discuss a little bit about from someone who knows about war.
Nice segue.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Apologies for being late, guys.
All right, Mr. Vet. Before we go ahead, let's get your take and your history with Watchmen.
Okay. I can remember this book coming out in my early teens and picking up a couple issues away from number one. I can remember having something like 6, 7, and 8, and it being way above my head at that time. But it was an introduction into different style that Alan Moore was doing because I was used to reading him on Swamp Thing. But it was through the years before Zack Snyder's Excellent Take, I got a chance to read it properly, go through it, and just it hitting very, very deeply. Just that the story within its own world stretched out over such a very large amount of time, and that how superheroes quickly became jaded and the world looked at them differently, and how much how much the government can play into that kind of thing. I thought it was very well done. And then after rereading it recently, just seeing that this is, to me, one of those stories where you think it would age well, but it's, to me, at this point, reading it now at this point in my life, I think it's timeless. I think this is the kind of story that anyone can pick up at any time without no history or knowledge of the book and just be like, yep, this is excellent, because it doesn't necessarily take place in, like, the timing doesn't represent the story itself. I mean, the time where it takes place. This is something we can read, talk about again 10 years from down the road, have it hit differently for each one of us in different ways, but it still be one of those stories like, yep, this is just fantastic.
Right. I say, yeah. And this took part during, the Reagan era, and that definitely had a big influence on it. But the world's not that different,
No, but I think I know the maybe the inspirational and the fear of the nuclear war inspired a little bit of this, at least with the Doomsday Clock imagery, and Manhattan being inspired by the Captain Atom. uh, I think that there's a little bit of that with time you kind of miss it, but it's not a significant part of the story because the fear of nuclear war is translated into the fear of Dr. Manhattan. So
Yeah.
All right. So in this panel, we get inkling on who the old gentleman was, and who he passed the torch on to. Both gentlemen are Night Owl. Dan, the guy on the right, is a current iteration. I wouldn't say current, but the last before, before it was his type was outlawed.
yeah, they're both retired, and they're talking superhero shit, but basically it's all in the past.
And then we get our first reference to who watches the Watchmen in the graffiti here.
Yep.
And we'll go to the Gungan Inn, the Gungan Diner.
And you see here the futuristic details in the pipes, and you have the boombox, but there's some futuristic thing.
Yeah, like their shades.
And you have all these little details like nostalgia and then Russia protesting the US bans on Afghanistan and all those things. I think Alan Moore must have broken Dave Gibbons' balls so much.
There's only a select few that like to work with Alan Moore.
Yeah.
But he did it. I mean, just going through these panel by panel, the amount of detail this guy put in everything, and he didn't half-ass any one of these panels.
Nothing.
And you can tell with the nostalgia piece, you can tell how Dan is feeling at the moment. What his conversation with Hollis was, and he'll refer back to that again in a couple of panels.
Yeah,
and this sequence is really nice because go back a little bit, Nick. He turns into the Night Owl in that panel. When he opens the door, his silhouette, he's a Night Owl.
Remembering his training, and then I think we get Drax famous or his favorite line coming up.
Short lip. Hello.
The thing about the bean juice, the human bean juice.
Rorschach is so good and so quotable, like just so damn quotable outside of the book.
Yeah, that's one of the main things that made him like the perfect character to follow, because he can say whatever, and it's good.
Well, let's see. There's the shoes.
Yeah, they both kind of have it.
They both have the same shoe.
So it keeps you wondering who it might have been.
Yeah, and here Rorschach is trying to, and here we see an aspect of him that maybe it's not so apparent that he's letting his allies, his former allies, know that someone killed the comedian and that they might be coming for them. So he's basically, hey, watch out. Hey, watch out. I come for you first because these two used to work together. So he's basically being kind in his own sick and twisted way.
Yeah, it also shows that he knows who the other Watchmen were, whereas I think in the Minutemen, not everybody knew their private identities.
No, exactly.
So look, there it is. Victim named Edward Blake.
But he didn't know that Blake was the comedian.
Right.
He knew Daniel was the Night Owl because they worked together. And he knows Bite is Bite because basically I think he uses his persona and his superhero persona as a marketing device.
I am Iron Man.
Basically, yeah.
Yep. So here's Dan not wanting to believe who killed the comedian really was who it was. You know, he thought maybe it was a burglar.
Ridiculous.
Actually, no, it's funny because, like, yeah, especially with that voice. Now this, like, they're like I called Rorschach insult Batman, but he in these past few pages he is giving off some very Batman vibes in that this is the guy who's clearly taken on the role of the detective in this story, and the way he speaks in those very short sentences, very to the point, matter of fact, is very much like a modern, darker Batman, right? This is not like based on the Batman from the past, right? So, and I guess the Dark Knight Returns would have was that just before
Same
this
year,
or
yeah,
same
or-
year, right?
Yeah, practically, yeah.
So it's
85.
interesting because, you know, most people were not familiar with that kind of Batman, but he's very much looking back on it now. He's here in this character.
Yeah, what Moore did here was basically kill the tropes, kill all the darlings of the superhero genre, and turn it on their head. And he was going for, I think he was going for maybe a critique of the genre, of the industry, and nobody read it that way.
Or maybe it's something he's been trying to do for a long time at this point, and now that the cuffs are finally off, he's able to write the character like he wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, and that's an excellent take that Drax said. Because the Killing Joke came out a little while later after this magnus opus, and the similarities between Rorschach and Batman in costume in the Killing Joke are very similar. When Batman's in costume, you don't necessarily get to see him clean, like a clean imagery of it, and he's very short and to the point while in costume, much like Rorschach in the first couple issues of the Watchmen. But when the mask is off, when he's like with Rorschach later on gets himself in prison or is in jail, he's a little bit more long in the tongue when it comes to conversation. Same thing with Batman when he's not in the cowl and the Killing Joke. So yeah, that's excellent take. That it's very similar. We're very similar between the two characters, even though they're, I believe, 2 to 3 years in difference between the release dates. But Alan Moore had a lot of fun with this, and then decided to do the same thing with the Killing Joke.
All right, and then in this panel, or these previous panels, we're getting a little history between the first Night Owl and the Watchmen, and we'll see in a couple of pages next issue, what really went down and how he was viewed, how the comedian was viewed in the Minutemen. But we're giving our first suspect really here.
Exactly. That's how Alan Moore frames this. And I don't think he does it actually to put Hollis Mason as a suspect, but he used it as a device to lore dump, take this opportunity to expose or do exposition about the story of these characters. Because Rorschach knows that Hollis Mason couldn't have done that because he's an old man. But he makes the point to tell Dan that he thinks it's one possibility.
Yep, and here we see a little bit of the history between these two. Dan points out, where the tunnel will let out, and Rorschach, yeah, I remember, we were friends. And then here's that nostalgia again. Dan asking, whatever happened to the good points, the good times. And then a little bit of the resentment here. Rorschach is still carrying on the job, and he seems to be the only one. Damn, Daniel. There it is. Now, if you guys will check out Legion put out a great video recently about the history of these characters and the prototypes and Charlton Comics. You can get a little bit of history back there. You see a little bit of Rorschach's journey. He uses the great word abattoir.
See it and follow and followed by
Yeah, not so politically correct when this came out.
Oh, the 80s.
I mean, that probably would have been in a comic, maybe even two in the early 2000s, even.
Right.
If there's one thing we know about Rorschach, it's he's not concerned about being politically correct.
no, he doesn't even care.
Yep, and he does have that by any means necessary attitude, which we'll see in a moment also, and how his reputation precedes him when he goes places.
Yeah, everyone fears this dude.
This part's so weird.
Why? Cole?
Well, just that guy's face, but also those are just supposed to be cigarettes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
okay.
so.
Yeah, this guy looks like he's smoking one of those things with the olives on it that you put in martinis.
Well, I didn't know if that was supposed to be some sort of like weird like opium thing, because they just like took Vietnam in as like the 51st state or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
So that's why you see a lot of people doing that, and I don't know how to smoke opium, but that's a weird.
That's a
looking
good
thing,
point.
though.
Yes,
I
sir.
hadn't thought about that.
I think it was just their prediction of them predicting vaping, essentially.
Yeah,
Maybe.
could have been.
Yeah, because
He's
they
a
use
wizard.
it in a restaurant scene in a panel, and there's like high society place, and they are smoking the same kind of cigarette.
And I just want to point out that this guy has an earring in his right ear, and in the 80s, that meant something specific.
Yeah, he was a homosexual.
So Rorschach goes into this place looking for information. He's looking for the person he can extract it from, and this guy opened his mouth, and he knows at that point he knows who he's going to pick on.
At that moment, he knew.
Yep. We're going to start with this finger here, and we're going to go right along, and everyone's going to tell me what they know, or they're going to witness this terrible thing happen to this terrible person.
Let's
No
just-
one is going to do anything about it.
I didn't tell at first. I didn't tell Rorschach what he wanted, and then I told him immediately afterwards.
Because I was thinking while reading this time, why no one shoots him? Does anybody have a gun? I mean, these dudes have a gun, of course. One of them has a gun on them.
But I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier, where people view these masked heroes as just insane, and for Rorschach to continue doing it after the Keene Act in '77, like they must see him and it's just like, oh shit, like this is the devil, like and just frozen with fear.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. So
It's
despite his best efforts, he doesn't get any information here. He's like, all right, well, maybe my search will be fruitless because this class of people are just beneath me, and the world is going to hell in a toilet. So
Yeah, he does his best Scarface impersonation right there. The human cockroaches.
you'll need me.
cucaracha.
And then he goes to see what seems to be the panel's favorite guy,
Definitely.
who has benefited from his time as a super insane hero, Adrian Veidt.
And the crazy thing is that Rorschach climbed that high rise.
All right, yeah.
I think he says it when he goes out the window. Like, I came through here, I go through here.
Yep.
And you see how up that is. It's
Yep.
even taller than the Empire State Building.
And then we can tell how good in the shape he was, because remember that his watch said 5 after when the cops were talking about it. And in that time frame, he scaled 2 buildings. So he's in good shape.
I think maybe the cops were there at noon.
Yeah, and I mean, well, that could be it too. That'd make more sense. But he's making his time around Midtown Manhattan pretty well too.
Pretty easy to scale a building.
I think even Adrian Veidt had the same shoes here.
Yeah, you can tell.
Communist shoes.
And they're all wearing purple.
And here we see even now knowing what we know, having read it all, you kind of understand why Bite reacts the way he reacts.
Now, I wonder also, is Rorschach, because the comedian died,
Yeah.
and is this just Rorschach being paranoid that his first thought is we've got a mass killer? Like,
Yeah.
why? Because one guy died, was killed. That's where his mind goes immediately. Which,
Yeah.
I think that's just his paranoia.
He's
he's right, but yeah.
The one thing I took from this scene was that he offered up just one or two possible ideas that the comedian has enemies. It could be political. And then Rorschach just went off and just talked and talked and talked and talked, and very little got said in the opposite direction. And then he just jumped to, like, that's it, like, bye-bye, I'm out the window, because that's what we all did in the 80s. We walked out of high rises going out the window. But I just thought, like, okay, this is from his first interaction to now when he goes to see this particular character. Why is it he offered up so much more this time around than the first conversation that he had? Does he look up at this guy and, like, does he hold him to a different esteem?
Yeah.
Than the current Night Owl that we have? Like, or is it just, like there's no way he thought he could be guilty whatsoever? And, like, is this the man who he feels like he's closest to by offering up so much that he did in his own take?
Yeah, see, and I wonder too, is like what Mark said. I think maybe the police, the way they were talking about how it was an extremely muscled guy and what it would take to throw the guy out the window. But what drew Rorschach to the crime scene to begin with?
He was passing by.
Just passing by, just happened.
Yeah, that's right, because he didn't know he was the comedian. So why was he there? Yeah,
Right.
He said, I was investigating a murder.
Just happened to be there.
Just happened to pick that one.
Yeah, because Rorschach is a street level hero in this point of the story, and he never retired. So for him, the villains are still out there, and that's why he said, okay, if this murder is not a simple murder, it's a murder of one of us, then someone else might be involved. And exactly like Mark said, he never stopped patrolling. He never quit. And he goes and offers more information or a different kind of information to Adrian, because Adrian is, according to the myth, the smartest man alive.
Right.
And Rorschach thinks it's true. And one thing they do with the art in this in that last panel, one thing that I think speaks of how well Bite has thought of things. He doesn't solve things or rush things, because in one panel before this one, he has there. Tell me something. If he cuts that hook, all his problems are solved.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have 11 more issues, would we?
No. It's a different story. It's a different story.
And then we know immediately there's got to be another huge twist, because this way we know who did it right away.
Yeah, but then he'll be investigated. So it's like his window's open, the thing is there, Rorschach's dead on the sidewalk. It's gonna bring.
That's where I was going with. That's what I thought as well.
But also, does he have anything available to actually do that?
Hands.
I think he can.
Well, if you pick that up, if there's a person on that, you're probably going to fall forward. You might fall off the window yourself, right?
Yeah, he's the smartest man alive. I know there's a
Scissors.
a reason why he didn't do it.
Yeah, and the real question is everybody knows high-rise windows do not open.
Yeah.
So how did he get that grappling hook in there in the first place? Unless he just did it on the way out.
Could be.
That's the only window that opens in a high rise in this city.
I blame Nixon. but okay.
Hey, Vite, can you open the window? I'm trying to leave.
And in this panel, that there's a crooked action figure of Adrian Veidt.
Yeah.
That's the figure, the action figure Rorschach was playing with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's kind of bent over in a weird way.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's then you have the homosexual comment like in the next thing.
Yep. And then we move on to who he's going to warn next.
Yeah, this sequence is amazing.
Right. He doesn't count himself among the insanity, the insane people.
No.
He does not have a personality disorder. That's right.
We know this guy did not do it by his shoes.
Right. Right. He's just a red shirt.
You're a regular sleuth, Cole.
And he's basically cheating on every superhero out there.
Right. Well, he's going down the checklist in his head of who might possibly have
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the way
He's a bloated, aging whore.
Right. And then we just meet into a high security military facility where they can just break the window and open the door.
Yeah, of course.
I used to do it all the time.
If you got to that point, it's customary.
Yeah, it's expected.
Right. But all along we knew Dr. Manhattan knew who was coming, when he was coming, and
How
Here we have
how he
Old blue balls himself.
old blue hole in this case because
Hello.
the first thing
How you doing?
right. Now we see why this Silk Spectre is really with him.
yeah.
His eyes. And that finger. What the finger's doing, see? He
What
found
that finger do?
All right, but Dr. Manhattan didn't tell Miss Uspesic who was coming.
Yeah, he's out of touch, definitely.
He's got bigger things to do. All right, she wants to know why he's here.
Yeah, she fucking hates his guts.
Yeah.
And then when he tells them the comedian is dead, that we find out that she also hates the comedian.
Well, with good reason. And we also find out that Dr. Manhattan's known since Saturday. So
And that the Libyans were responsible.
That's a Twin Pines Mall.
Yes, that's right. The Twin Pines.
The
Yeah.
Twin Pines Mall.
And how
I'm a little surprised given Rorschach's political bent that he's not like, yeah, fucking right, it was the Libyans. Let's go get that.
I mean, nudity aside, when we first read this, did we think that Dr. Manhattan's character design was pretty much awesome, though?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I mean, it's incredibly difficult to pull off a naked man, throughout a whole comic, but he does that. Like the line work on Dr. Manhattan's awesome. He's it's a great design.
So I think that only works with obviously his personality and his dialogue. Like he's so removed from like being a normal person where it's just like, I'm so above you, I don't even give a fuck to wear clothes. Like that's how far removed I am. It only works with his dialogue though.
Yeah, you almost don't even notice his penis at all.
There's a penis?
There you do. You kind of see it hanging there.
I think it's technically a mushroom cloud.
There you go. You either take the mushroom or become the mushroom.
And here they allude to the history between Miss Jupiter and her mother and the comedian, and giving us possibly a further another suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in time, we find out that this girl is the comedian's daughter, which is she's the fruit of that rape.
Right, and then right there, that
No.
last panel, there we get to see Batman in full incel mode, where he's referring to the rape as a moral lapse, essentially.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, one of his little quirks, Rorschach.
Wait, so DJ, you say she's not the comedian's daughter?
No, she is the comedian's daughter,
okay,
but it
okay.
wasn't. She wasn't a product of that rape.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was late. Yeah, later on down the line, she cheated. Not cheated on whatever. She wasn't the product of a rape because the rape happened in the 50s or whatever.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means Sally Jupiter and the comedian, they got together and had like a one night stand or something like that years after the rape. That's why the Sally Jupiter's husband at the time, he was so pissed because he knew what happened, the rape that Hollis Mason wrote about, and she still went back to the comedian all those years later for a tangle.
Yeah, no, she loved him even though
Yeah.
that happened.
Yeah, and then we get to the point. We get to what Will Smith should have done when Jada was upset, and just teleported Chris Rock out of there.
Ha ha ha.
Keep my wife's name, and he's gone.
Yeah, and here we see the extent of Dr. Manhattan's powers at first glance, because we know he can change size and he has some kind of ET finger.
All right, and we get the look of pure disbelief on Rorschach's face.
Okay, fuck it.
Shout out to Big Herm.
Yep, and then we see what Miss Jupiter thinks of Rorschach.
Yeah. But then she goes immediately to, let's get the band back together, basically, kind of. What were you going to say, Cole?
I was just gonna say, what do you think Rorschach actually smells like?
Oh, God.
Because she said she doesn't like the way that he smells.
Yeah.
Foul.
And then typical woman thinking about herself. When are you going to take me out?
Oh shit.
I was going to ask, like, so if you back up a couple panels, Nick, when she first goes off on Rorschach, at what point do you think he actually like stops listening to her? Like right when he says, "Are you upset?" and then just kind of like blanks out and is focused on what he's doing, because he's already like got half his arm inside the machine he's working on.
Full fist.
Like, yeah.
Basically,
Wow.
she gives him an order. John, get this creep out of here. And he says, okay, I gotta do this.
Like, he's like, sorry, bro, I gotta go. You gotta go.
Hoes before bros.
Yeah,
And then-
like from
But then he says something to Lori, Dr. Manhattan, and it's just like she's going on, and his head doesn't look at her whatsoever.
No, because he's already solved the issue. So
yes.
it shouldn't be bothering him anymore.
It's like just letting her vent kind of thing, and
For
like
me,
because like it's just silence, and then she's like, "John, yes, Lori." Like my head, like my the way I read that part of me was, "Yes, Lori." Like she snapped him out of what he was doing. Like weren't you even listening to me? And then she goes on to another tirade.
But do you see this thing he's working on, Chris? This is less complicated than figuring out.
Oh
You say that with such experience, Nick.
So I think everything that she's saying, that's just a prompt for him to say his response that he already knows that he's going to say. So he's just like so disconnected from that. So every time she says something, he's just like, all right, I have to respond with this already made up response that I already have in my head because I already saw this entire conversation.
Right.
So
He already
for me,
knows.
that's why he's super detached.
It does, yeah. It becomes a very important later on in the story how detached he is from humanity, essentially, and then, you know, but it comes full circle. He ends up.
Yeah, and they also tell us that
It's like licking a battery.
one of the things that keeps him human is his attachment to Lori or his previous wife.
Right.
Basically, that's what they do to keep him entertained and kind of human.
Right, and then comedian I think says something about it in a later issue. I don't know if it's this issue about how he has to make sure that he gets his rocks off once a month or something. But
Yeah,
we see how Miss Jupiter ties us into her nostalgia, and brings up Dan again, and it's like, oh, maybe I should go out with Dan again.
yeah, and then she wants to see Dan
Right.
immediately.
Right.
Do you think there was something there before?
I think there might have been some kind of not fling, but some kind of feelings in passing. Because I think once she's seen this big blue guy naked, it like everything else went out the window.
I think Comic Journey says that Rorschach smells like mushrooms. I don't
Yes.
think he smells like mushroom. Have you ever smelled a homeless person up close?
Yes,
I think that's how Rorschach smells.
and I believe you're right.
I think he smells like guilt and bewilderment.
And dried cum.
Sure, that too. Oh shit!
All right, so in knowing how everything is going to play out, Dr. Manhattan lets her be off and to handle more important things.
Yeah, he's kind of happy that she's going away. Okay, yeah, go. He's smiling.
Yeah.
I think this is the only time in the comic that we see a clear smile on his face. Okay, go fuck this dude.
I kind of think though
He's a
kinda-
cuck.
Yeah.
He wants her to be happy though. I think in everything that he can't give her what she wants, and even if he is being cucked, she's happy in a way.
Yeah,
TW, what up?
he doesn't give a fuck.
I don't know. I never smelled like cat food. Any Easter eggs here, Iggy? It seems like this would be the place.
Well, we have the Gunga Diner there.
So say Crystal Knocked.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what's there. Well,
Yeah.
watch the Watchmen again.
Watchmen. All right, stopping to
Nice.
get a peek.
And here we see the comedian in full incel Batman mode.
Yeah.
No one cares about me.
Right, and here we get foreshadowing. Soon there will be war. But why? Why do we get war that time?
And yeah, why does one death matter against so many? Which
That's Adrian's point.
is absolutely, yeah, it's justification.
All Adrians are so smart, by the way.
Very true.
Right, and then we get another little foreshadowing to the Black Freighter.
Yeah. And the Nixon 4 more years poster.
Years. And then we tab up.
Remy. I think Remy nailed Rush accent.
And here we see something quite strange. They seem like they're eating coins.
And I think what was that in the last panel? African spaghetti. Oh my god, yeah, yeah, that sounds good. African spaghetti. What's wrong with that?
You've never had.
You see here, there's a progression. The chicken has 2 legs, 4 legs.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right.
There's a gay couple there. There's facial tattoos. There's those strange
Yeah.
cigars.
You know what I noticed too? That this right here is the Eye of Horus.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
That has no bearing on the story whatsoever.
No.
Good.
Well,
Good eye.
yeah,
Egyptian
yeah.
motif.
Exactly. And we have warm colors in this part of the story. Pink. The only other part in which we saw pink was on that window with the naked lady. So
Right. Dan Dryberg's about to see that pink.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and so there they are, both lying to themselves that the
They don't
best
miss
thing
it.
that ever happened was that they're not costumeteers anymore when that's what they both want, as
Right.
we'll see shortly.
Yeah, we'll see the effect of them getting back into it.
Mm.
And here,
Little hand touch.
Yep.
and here we have the smiley face, and we're gonna zoom out again.
We also see how insane the people in costumes really are.
Mm-hmm.
By the one guy who just became a supervillain because he wanted to get beat up. That was
For sexual gratification.
That was his kink.
Mm-hmm.
running down the street. Punish me, punish me. Yeah, and we see it getting further and further out.
And it's crazy because they're laughing, and the corollary of the issue is the comedian is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Fuck,
well,
that was good stuff.
Yep. And then honestly, I'll be perfectly honest. I once I get to this stuff, I fall asleep. So I read none of this.
yeah, well,
The Hollis Mason stuff is actually good.
Yeah,
It's
I know
good.
this is good. I mean, I would say read it at least once. You don't have to read it every time if you like. I don't think I've read that every time, but I've read it a couple times. It's definitely it's there. It's part of the story. It's intentional. I would say do make the time to read it.
it adds a little bit of a layer to
Yeah,
it.
it does. Yeah.
But again, it's Alan Moore prose. Alan Moore is so full of himself.
Yes.
I mean, he's
Not untrue.
he's so good, but
I mean, after reading that, I definitely wanted more.
so
Proud of you.
if you haven't read Under the Hood, the excerpts, basically I have a couple of notes here. In the world of Watchmen, the superhero comics start in our world with Action Comics #1. But by the time Hollis Mason writes the book, those comics and characters, like Superman, are long gone. So Hollis tells why he became a superhero after reading about the Hooded Justice in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, basically, to summarize all those pages.
All right. So in summation, is like the first time you read issue #1, are you hooked? Are you ready to read more, or do you just plain hate it and are done with it?
For me,
What do you take away with it? What stands out from issue #1 for everybody?
for me, I love a great thriller murder mystery, and it's exactly what it is. That's what it sets out to be, and it's right up my alley.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. It's like it is that it's a great setup for a murder mystery. That's essentially what this first issue is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hooked right away.
Even the first time you read it?
Yeah.
Okay. Cole?
The second time I read this, I said, maybe I judged this book a little too harshly.
What about the first time?
The first time, I think I started looking at the prose and then I fell asleep and then I woke up and then I read a little bit more and fell back asleep. I don't know. The first time, I don't know. I mean, it was one of the first comics that I read getting back into comics. I think I read this, Deadpool versus the Marvel Universe.
Okay.
So, like...
Yeah, dude. It's like night and day right there.
Might be a difference there. Yeah, for me, it's like reading it as, I guess, a full superhero nerd by then. I wanted to know more about Dr. Manhattan. I think that was the part I wanted to really hone in on.
Especially after seeing his blue.
No,
Yeah.
you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
He didn't get to see under his hood yet. I don't remember if he's circumcised or not.
I see what
Dr.
you
Manhattan is the true hooded justice.
I mean, technically, they don't really show it, but you can sort of tell.
How about you, Chris?
For me, I'll be brutally honest. The first time I read issue 1, I fell in love with Rorschach. I thought he was just a fascinating anti-hero, and to me, he might be the #1 anti-hero on my list, above the Punisher. Like, it's just He's just so excellent. But then I went back. And I got to admit, this is one of the few books where I went back to reread it after I got through the first issue, just because I feel like there's so many things that I lost just because I was so focused on Rorschach, the mask, how he was talking with everyone, how he was tight-lipped with certain characters and loose in the tongue with others. And what hit me then was the color palettes and the stuff that's like Easter eggs now is what we would call it, but I would say just hidden messages the first time I read it. And it was to me just a book that not everyone's going to grasp, not everyone's going to enjoy, but I love a good whodunit, and it presents itself that way, bright and early in the book. But man, like the characters are just so deep, and it's just looking back at myself when I first read it, I can realize I didn't understand how deep Alan Moore likes to get in his storytelling. Yeah, it's just I was hooked, but I knew going into reading the whole series all at once how well respected the story was. And there was other Alan Moore books and his storytelling outside of the Watchmen that I was already in love with. So it's not like I had to force myself to read this, but I forced myself to reread issue 1 because I felt like there's so many things that I missed, and I was right. That just often I just fell in love with one character and I didn't realize everything that I had missed, including that conversation with Adrian.
Yeah, for me, the same. The first time I read this, I fell in love with the art. That's what hooked me the most, the art. And Rorschach, because I was an edgy teen. And who doesn't love Rorschach when you're an edgy teen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think if I read this as a youngin or as a teen, I wouldn't know what the hell was going on.
Oh, I had no clue about
Yeah.
all the subtext, all the hidden messages, all the comings and goings of why Rorschach does this and why he talks like this to this dude. I think
Yeah.
I finally understood most of the story when I read it for the third time.
I'm with you there because it wasn't until years later after reading it a few times that you really start to there's a lot to unpack in this, many layers to it. But right off the bat, like you said, I mean, like you and Chris said, for me, Rorschach, it's like he's immediately intriguing. You're like, I don't know who this dude is, but I want to read more about what this guy is doing because I had not read a character like that before in the comic books I was reading. So
no, and the serious tone of everything, the muted palette, the secondary colors, it's so out of the ordinary for what we were. I mean, I read this in '92, and we were in the brink of the image explosion and the colors, and then you see this, and I didn't know what it was, but it was extremely appealing. And each time I read this book, something happens. Now I'm Team Bite, for example, but first time I was Team Rorschach. Second time I was Team Comedian. And then I was Team Manhattan probably, and then I was never with the Night Owl. Sorry.
I'm Team Top Knot.
Yeah, Team Top Knot.
Yeah, for me, reading it the first time, I was like in my early teens, and I think just the fact that it was so hardcore and there were things that I didn't see in comic books previously, that was the allure for me. So that's what kind of hooked me. Even though I didn't really get all the subtext and all the hints, it was like cool to me, but I definitely appreciated it better as I got along. So
yeah, it was one of those things like after the movie, because obviously this is the first time I read it for the show, but after the movie, I loved it. One of my favorite movies. When I started collecting slabs, oddly enough, that was one of the first slabs I got was Watchmen #1.
Crazy that you have a slab of a book that you have never read.
Comics.
Yeah.
That first cover too was so iconic that it's just one of those pieces of art you want on the wall also.
So Watchmen actually has one of my all-time favorite covers, which is issue, I want to say 8 or if I look here real quickly.
Little detail, each each cover of each issue is the first
It's
panel
later on.
of the issue. If
Mhm.
you see it, it has continuity with the first panel of the actual pages.
Yeah, so actually, issue 11, where it's just the
Oh yeah.
snow with the
That's our lives every day, Adrian. I can understand why you
That's it.
enjoy that.
I mean,
the
yeah,
top
what,
view of like the atrium, right?
yeah. I mean,
That's
when
our
you first
lives
see
every
that,
day.
when you first see that, you don't know what it is. Once you understand the context of
Yeah.
this cover, it's incredible.
That's fantastic.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's kind of like one of those Breaking Bad episodes where you see something in the beginning and you have no clue what it is, and then the whole episode goes on. You're like, oh,
Mhm.
Yeah, Moore has as a way to connect scenes that you can see up in Swamp Thing and in each of his works, but it's he's a master. He's a master. There's no denying that. He's an insane motherfucker too. But
Yeah.
All right.
and
So I think we got through issue 1.
Issue
yeah,
one.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did.
it
Yeah.
only took us an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I expected nothing less. I mean, you could,
Yeah.
we could talk about that for another hour easily. That, you know.
Oh yeah.
So,
I will whisper no.
all right. YouTube thing while we're going to go around, or just. Sure. Well, Ignacio and I, Thursday afternoons. Cole's
I got
got
some stuff
something.
coming out.
You've got
I
some.
dropped a 1K video. If you guys want to go watch it, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. But I might give some stuff away eventually. I haven't really selected a date, but I will eventually.
How about you?
I just put out a video today. My top 10 covers for Bearded and Cole's comic cover challenge. So you can go check that out. And then tomorrow I will be on Between the Lines with TM Nerdy
Nice.
and Geek Out with Roscoe. I think it's on Travis's channel. I don't know. It's on one of their channels. We figure it out. And that's
It's on
about
Travis'
it.
channel.
What's the topic for tomorrow night? You know yet?
No, it
Yeah,
premieres.
I picked it, but you're gonna have to tune in to find out. And,
It's salsa.
Yeah. And then later this week, I will be dropping another video for my 500 subscriber giveaway announcement. So there's that. And then in the meantime, go watch my video I dropped today and Justice for Jeremy Studio.
What about you, Mr. Links?
Video dropping tomorrow. Video dropping Wednesday. In the mix Friday 9 p.m. Eastern.
That was so quick. You are a professional.
He is.
Congratulations, Cole, by the way, on 1K, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, the topic tomorrow night will be vampires and snowstorms. That's what they're going to be drawing. Anyways, no. Grow Together Tuesdays.
Good idea.
I'm really enjoying doing Grow Together Tuesdays, so keep an eye out for that. And Wednesday is a live new comic book day hangout, open invitation. Just reach out to me on IG to show the books that you just picked up.
Nice.
Thank you.
And my lovely co-host, I will have the link for the hardcover for By the Horns next Thursday. But let's check it out now.
It's already. I think they unlocked the stickers I did for the 4 Wind Wizards. Besides the print, because I did the design for the print with the 4 villains of the story, 5 if you count the tiger, and then I isolated them and painted them differently to make stickers for the campaign. So if you haven't read By the Horns, I think this is the perfect opportunity to get a beautiful hardcover book of a great story. And if you have read it, you probably, I don't have to tell you anything because you're probably already backing it. They funded in 23 hours, and I think they're, 10,000, 10K and change. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They still have time. And they have a lot of cool merch, like a horn to drink from, and
I have a vinyl record
yeah,
of By the Horn.
they have the vinyl for from the first time they did it. They still have a few pressings of that vinyl. And go support that motherfucker because I'm dropping a book soon with this dude. Well, soon. That's wishful thinking. Maybe 2025. What about you, Nick?
I am adding that link to the description for you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Go check it out. Also, his By the Horns exclusive is in the web store for Scout Comics. Is that correct?
Yes.
Use discount code burrito to possibly get 10% off.
Yeah. I think it still works.
Yeah, I have no clue if it works or not because we haven't really done stuff with them in a while. But hey, it could still work. So check it out.
Yep.
10%?
I'll add that to the description. Also, it's By the Horns number 2.
From the second story arc, Dark Earth. Issue 2 from Dark Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a second there. And yeah, that's in there now. Also, other than that, maybe we'll schedule part 2 if everybody's not busy. But I mean, you can see this story itself has got a lot to unpack, and it's one of the great ones. So I want to thank not only the panelists for coming, you guys in the chat as always. Thank you for coming.
Human bean juice.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. And
And if you want, because after this, our maiden voyage of reading and reviewing books. Oh, someone got killed. We're gonna have
way to deal with death.
We're gonna have basically probably some feedback from the panel, from the viewers, to adjust a couple of things. I don't think we did a perfect job, but I think we did well. So don't be afraid and throw your shit our way.
yeah, or if you guys read along and you have a question or something else to add to the conversation, by all means, throw it in the chat, and yeah, we welcome it. So thank you all, love you all, and maybe next time we'll have some outro stuff, but
Ooh.
maybe. But
Some flying blue dick from the movie.
maybe.
Yeah.
On that note, later, guys.
Peace.
Bye-bye.